Hello, everyone, and welcome. Really happy to be here with you. Well, it's morning time here in Sedona, Arizona, to be a part of this beautiful event. Whether you're with us here now or whether you catch the recording later, doesn't really matter. We thank you for being in this energy. Thank you for these whole days that are being put on, these compassion games. It's really time for this. I wanted to speak a little bit today to working on the causes of issues, whether it's our personal healing, whether it's issues around the globe, whether it's interpersonal things, rather than the symptoms. As humans, we've been focused on symptoms too long, especially those who were born and raised in the Western cultures and in the dominant cultures. Some of the Eastern cultures and some of the indigenous or lesser populated cultures have known for a long time that we need to go and find the causes of things that happen. So today we're going to talk about it a little, and then whoever's here will hopefully have a little discussion around this, because I think it's really a critical point. It's a point that was brought to me years ago, and I'll get into that in a little bit. I'm just waiting. Okay, here's my friend Kat, who is in Vail, Colorado now. I'm sitting in Sedona. I think we'll just open for a moment with our drums. Anyone who has a drum, let's just get connected to the earth for a moment. So just a simple heartbeat of the earth. Those of you in the global drum community, where I believe this is also being linked up to, if you have your drums, like a lot of you generally do, feel free to drum along. Or if you watch this later, pick up a drum and drum for a moment. I think just a simple 1-2 heartbeat. And as we do it, just connect with your heart, because we're going to talk a little bit today about exploring these issues with your heart more than your brain. Once again, kind of counterintuitive, as my good friend Kat brought me that term this morning to use, and I realized how pertinent it is, kind of counterintuitive to thinking that's how we find the cause of certain issues. So, anybody ready? Little 1-2 with the Earth Mother. Just feel your own heart. Feel the Earth Mother's heart. Just think about nature. Feel your own inner body. Feel your spirit. Nice. Kind of cut across the Turtle Island with that too. With Becky and Robert on the East Coast, me down here in the desert in Sedona, and Kat up in the mountains. So we had multiple ecosystems in that short little drumming. Causes versus symptoms. What am I talking about? Well, I think I'll go back a little bit first and capture some history. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because I really want to open it up for anybody who's here to put their voice in, because this is about the circle, the collective, not any one person. But individually, we have to deal with it too. So if I go back, way back now, to when I was just a little short being, when Dr. King was alive and marching and activating a lot of us, I was very involved, angry, enraged by a lot of the things I saw going on around me, as many of us young people at the time were. I was thinking about the Vietnam War, knowing that I would be facing the draft soon. I was furious with the people causing that war, in my opinion. I was very happy to go out and throw bricks back when they threw bricks at us. It was activism, but it was activism through rage and hate. And the circle kept going. Why did Vietnam go on so long? Why have we had war after war since then? Why do the people of Ukraine face it now and other places? It's because we haven't hit the cause. Again, we see the symptoms. We see somebody doesn't like someone else. We see somebody trying to grab power. We see the microcosm of what's causing these things. Dr. King, for me, luckily for me, at a very young age, changed that. Not overnight. It's something that I had to let simmer inside of me a long time. But when I went down to some of his marches, and I was lucky enough to be there, again, I was just a child then, young teen. But to hear Dr. King, to hear the people around him, to be a part of that as a young person, basically marching, not sure why even at first, pretty much with my mouth open, just amazed. All these people were there. And then seeing the hate turned against these people, seeing the bloodied heads, seeing people being attacked, but not fighting back, being arrested, being thrown in police vehicles, being hauled off, but still not fighting back. Hearing Dr. King's words that this needed to be a peaceful time, a peaceful resolution. It wasn't perfect, nothing is. I remember seeing some pushback, physical pushback, but not a lot, not compared to the other events I was part of then. And I really thought about that a long, long time. Dr. King was expert, in my opinion, at looking into things and seeing, okay, here's what's happening now. People are angry. Someone got killed. Someone was arrested for no reason. Someone was pulled out of their car. Some group is being harassed. He was an expert at seeing that those were symptoms of a larger dis-ease, a larger wart on humanity, not being able to accept each other. As I heard him say, I heard in his words more than once, not being able to come together because we look different, we sounded different, we even had different beliefs. So the cause that needed to be addressed, I got from him and others who were part of that, was that hatred of each other. Why is it there? Not this small group of police doing this over here, or this politician in Selma, Alabama doing this over there. Those were symptoms of this larger issue. And so he turned me around, and I tried to apply that as I went forward, again, not perfectly. Vietnam was horrific for those of us of draftable age. I watched my friends come back in body bags. I refused to go. I was a protester. My number was pulled number 3. So I would have been on the first plane out, but I couldn't do it. And I couldn't do it in part because I heard Dr. King talk about a peaceful revolution, a revolution we might not see the results of in our lifetime. Boy, was he right. But that just has sustained me throughout my life, which is quite a number of years now. I still see how important it is. 5, 6 years ago when Standing Rock started, and when I went up there for the first time and I sat with LaDonna Brave Bull Howard, who passed away this last year. It was the mother of Standing Rock, the true mother of Standing Rock. I was fortunate enough to be involved from pretty much the beginning. She was the one that the young people came to. But it was the same message. Not a black man in the South now, but a red woman up in the north of the country. The same message. We cannot do this with hate. We cannot do it with anger. We cannot throw back the hatred and the anger and the fear of those who are taking us on. Even those who controlled the oil company interest, who paid for a lot of the pushback. And so that same message was ringing clearly. And I really think as we go forward now, it's absolutely critical that we come together and that we look at the causes. Before I open this up, let me just tell one story, which was another piece of my travel to get where I am now, which is just the first couple steps, I think, on a much longer road for all of us, because it doesn't end when we leave this planet. But I was shared this story, probably 35 years ago, maybe more, by my really first indigenous teacher, well, my second. My grandmother, I guess, was my first. Because in his opinion, I was still looking for a short road to get to where we wanted to be. So after teaching me the old, it's all about the journey and not the destination, which I admit I still have problems with at times, he told me a story to help me see why we have to slow down, pay attention, and look at the big picture. Some of you may know this story. And this was a Native American elder of mine. So he tells of a brave young man who is taking a walk, who wants to go off and visit some sacred places because he's not feeling connected. He's not understanding why some things are happening, some bad things in his opinion, rather than dark. As he's walking, he comes to a river. And he stops for a minute and he considers, does he want to swim across? Does he want to go upstream or downstream and try to cross? And really he figures, well, the quickest way is I'm just going to swim here. So as he's sitting there, he looks out at the river, getting ready to go in, takes off his moccasins and sticks them in his bag he has behind him. And just as he's ready to jump in, he sees a big leaf coming down the river. And on that leaf is a baby who's crying, a very small baby. And he's flabbergasted. He doesn't know what to do. He's watching. And he thinks, well, I have to jump in. I have to do something or that baby's going to get killed eventually. And so he jumps in the river and he swims hard. And the baby's gone right down the middle of the river. And he grabs that leaf and he starts pulling the leaf back to the shore. Back to the shore he was on originally. Not crossing the river yet. And so he finally gets the baby to the shore and he's just He's just sitting there looking at this baby. And he picks the baby up and he holds the baby. And he doesn't understand. Why is this baby here? He's not sure what to do, but he thinks, well, I have to take the baby with me, but I have to get across the river as well. This travel of mine must go on. I must get to the sacred places. I must ask my questions. Time is short. Again, getting impatient. And as he looks up, as he's thinking these things, he sees another leaf coming down the river. 2 leaves this time. 2 babies. And so he jumps in, he swims hard once again. And he gets to the middle and he grabs the leaves, each with a baby on it. And he proceeds to start pulling them back to the shore. Takes him longer now. He's got 2 babies in tow. But he gets there. He's a strong young man. And he lifts them out. Now he's got 3 babies on the bank. He's not sure what to do. I mean, he's completely confused. There's babies, they're on leaves, they're coming down the river. What do I do? How do I take care of them? So as this is going on, he hears some noise behind them. And he sees 3 people coming up the path he had taken to get here. A man and a woman and a minister. And they come up to him and they see him standing there, and they see these babies, and they ask them, and he says, I don't know what's going on. These leaves are coming down the river with babies on them. I swam in, I pulled them back here, and here they are. I don't know what to do with them. And so the man and woman said, well, we'll take care of the babies. And that's great. Maybe I can continue my journey. But as he says it, they look up, and now there's 3 leaves coming down the river, 3 babies on them. And he says, look, here comes more of the babies. So the man and the woman both jump in the river with him this time. Swim to the middle. They grab the 3 leaves, 3 babies, haul them back to the bank, haul them up on the bank. Now there's 6 babies. The minister says, why, what do we do? Let me pray to God. Let me ask why these babies are here. And the man and the woman say, oh, I'm not sure what we do. How can we tend to 6 babies? And more leaves start coming. So all of them now are taking turns, jumping in the river, swimming to the middle, grabbing the babies, pulling them back on the bank. And the babies are adding up on the bank, and more keep coming. And suddenly the young brave stops. And he's lost in thought, in prayer, in silent meditation, because he's completely overwhelmed now. Those there, I'm sure, could see it in his face. And he turns, and he begins to walk upriver. He begins to walk away. 2 more people had come in the interim, so now there's 4 or 5 people there plus him. And he's just walking up the river. And the minister yells at him, where are you going? What's the matter with you? We've got to save all these babies who keep coming down. And some of the other people now are yelling at him, you coward, you horrible human. How can you walk away when all these babies are coming down the river? And the young man stops for a minute and looks back at them, and he simply tells them, please continue to save those babies. But we have to know why those babies are there, where they're coming from. I'm going upriver. I'm going to find out where and why, so we can stop this, so we can heal it. And he turns and goes back upriver. And so when I heard that, it was actually at the end of a sweat lodge, one of my first, really, long before I was able to do any of those ceremonies. But that young brave, that meaning of the story, he understood the cause was what we had to understand. Not just saving the babies. We'll never save all the babies. If we continue as humans to focus on the smaller issues around us, not that they're not important, not that some of them are not painful, they are. But if we continue to live in that place, we'll fail. We will definitely fail because we'll be overwhelmed. We're already seeing it playing out around us in many ways. If we continue to let those who are greedy, are hate-filled, who want to control, who want to just consume, lead us, pitch us against each other, we'll fail. This is the time to unite. And this is something that so many are talking about. How can we come together? How can we put aside all those differences? Some of them are very legitimate, many of them are, but that's not the point right now. White, red, black, and yellow, as all my indigenous friends talk about the colors, we need to come together, men and women. Sure, we have our differences and complaints, but we need to come together, young and old, Christian, atheist, Buddhist. We need to come together. The things around us, the causes are bigger than any one component of us. The causes will take all of us. And even all the prophecies from the past have talked about this. When this time comes, many of them say, we have got to unite. Men and women have got to stand together in harmony for once. The four colors have to come together. The elderly must be heard and the youth must be heard. All these pieces that allow us to go and find out what the causes of these things are. And so a lot of people are starting to work on that now. And it brings light into the darkness for me whenever I hear of it. I have a really short video I'm going to put up, just something that came to myself and a friend of mine last week. There's a lot of spiritual people here in Sedona, Arizona. It's one of the premier spiritual spots, not only on Turtle Island in America, but around the world. And so it's a blessing to be here. And I know some of them, but there's many, many that I don't. But a lot are doing good work. Those who are coming to this 3 or 4 day event and participating, whether they're presenting or there is audience and speaking or just watching and listening, this is really powerful. But we have to go beyond that because we're still focused on symptoms. So this is just a brief thing I put out that the two of us here are putting together, and we're hearing from elders now. So if my brother Robert's there, here we go. Jim Graywolf here, Sedona, Arizona, calling out to the elders in the area. Rebecca Sage and myself, we're just brainstorming, and it's time to have a gathering of the elders, a circle, a place we come together, we speak, maybe do a little ceremony together, but let's talk about what's been going on for the last couple of years, what's coming, and what possibly we can do collectively. We're all doing our work. We're doing some great work. But it's time. We need to unite. And we elders need to come together and discuss what can we do? How can we assist? So, if you're interested, if you're one of the elders here, whether we know you or not, get hold of us. Jim Graywolf, Rebecca Sage, we're both on Facebook. I will put our links below this video, how you can also get a hold of us. Gathering of the elders in circle, someplace sacred. Thank you for hearing us, I hope. Thank you. Good. I was muted there for a minute. Some would say that's a good thing, but we're back. And so as Rebecca and I sat there working on some of the things we're going to be doing together, it occurred to us we need to bring everybody together to talk about just what we're talking about here today. Yes, we're doing some good work. Sometimes just one of us, sometimes a few of us, but we need to get together and go beyond that. We need to look at what the heck is the causes of the things going on now and what can we do collectively to make a difference? And so that's coming. We're looking now for the proper location because that's important. We want to make sure that Mother Earth is happy with where we hold this gathering of elders. I've had a couple of people reach out who saw that little brief video with that elderly guy, me, and want to know, how are we doing this? I couldn't give him a real answer. I said, right now we put the video out, we're hearing back from people because they want to replicate that elsewhere, and that's fine too. I think anytime now we can come together, look at what's been going on, look at what's happening around us, whether it's the war, so whether it's social issues, political issues, the environmental issues, for me, number one, because we're just watching ecosystems and animals and plants and everything else collapse around us. Whatever it is, how can we get past those symptoms? How can we get beyond the salmon are not in the streams? How can we get beyond in the moment, eggs are $8 a dozen here because the chickens are all dying of a disease, on and on and on. How do we go to the larger picture? So that's what I wanted to talk about today. How do we do that? Who's got thoughts? Who has ideas? Those who hear this later, I would appreciate it if you would sit and think about it. Actually, don't think too hard. Feel into it. This is all heart-based work. Those who know me know I've been saying that for years, and I say it even stronger now. We have to go at this with our hearts first, our brains second. And I do mean that. Sometimes our brains get us in trouble. We're lucky as humans, our brain is supposed to be our biggest asset. Sometimes it gets in our way. We think we see the answer, when actually, once again, we're just looking at a little bit of it. A lot of my past educations in natural resources, I've watched us manage the natural resources of the planet, the animals, the plants. And almost every single time it's turned into a disaster. It's time to listen to the earth. It's time to hear the mother. She will show us what the causes are, even if we don't want to see them. And then we can start going at trying to come up with solutions, better solutions. And with that, I go silent for a moment and I see in our audience here, who would like to speak? Oh, Kat's got a hand up.
Jim, thank you for going back to the original sin. This week on Humanity Rising, I've been listening to Kuyuk and Chief Phil speak about the horrors of their enslavement by the colonizing white people. And it occurs to me that there's a relationship with time and suffering and pain and wounds. And the thing that Kuyuk continues to remind me is that the best thing that we can do right now for the entire planet is to heal ourselves. And I have experienced that with Kuyuk on beach walks. He's the Anangan elder who convenes the wisdom weavers of the World Council. So some of it depends on the slice of time that we're focused on. If we go back to the time of the Russians in Alaska, that's one enslavement. If we go back to the time of Americans having taken over St. Paul Island, that's another type of enslavement. If we precede that thousands of years, do we even know what kind of wounds and suffering indigenous might have had with other indigenous? So all of that is to say, if we want to look at the cause and not the symptom, seems to me it has something to do with the slice of time that we're willing to land on. And I guess I just want to say that forgiveness seems to be a very powerful tool. and getting beyond the shame and blame game and getting to, okay, this is where we are right now. How do we move forward? And for some who are stuck in the feelings of anger and rage of how they had been mistreated in previous generations that keep rippling forward, it's easier for a person who doesn't feel that kind of wound to say, let's move forward. But for one who is suffering generations upon generations of abuse, it's a harder thing to forgive. So that's all I want to say.
Thanks, Kat. Those are, yes, powerful words. Um, and you're absolutely right. But we need to, I think, the way that it's been put to me over the years as I was trained, when this time came, which we're right in the middle of now, it would be the end of times, or it would be the beginning of times. That's the choice we have to make. And you're absolutely right about that. And it's a slice of time. So when the things happened is important. If we go back in history, and I've had people who are much more educated than this than me, and we look at all the different cultures, at some point in history, every one of those cultures was oppressed in some way. Every one of those cultures at another time was the oppressor in some way. And yeah, so healing, forgiving, not forgetting. We'll never forget. I mean, my DNA, my biggest batch of DNA is Romani Gypsy Italian branch. And my people, although I didn't have a strong connection because I was brought up here, were almost eliminated in World War II. So yeah, we can stay there, but it's not going to help us. Those are the symptoms of the hatred, I think. You're right. I mean, that's what we're dealing with. And how can we do it? I did see some of it at Standing Rock. I saw people who were natural enemies, not just Native people, because people came from around the globe, but standing there and talking to each other, including myself. I spoke to people who were, even for me in this lifetime, were enemies when I was younger, because I got a lot of flack when I stood up and started learning indigenous ways. But we managed to put it aside, and no, it's not easy. But I really think it's part of that challenge. Can we do that? If we can't, do we deserve to come up with the solutions? Because we won't do it in bits and pieces. You know, Kat, you and I have been blessed to be, and mostly because of your work, connected to some of these young people in Ukraine. They affect me in so many ways. And other groups I've worked with now with people in Ukraine, because they're still right in the middle of this. And I just sit and I wonder, how can this still happen? But I don't hear just pure hatred pouring out of them. If anybody would be justified to have it at this moment in time, I would say it's those people. And there's some others that are not even publicized. I know that, Africa, for example. So maybe that is a step forward in the middle of a horror. I don't know. What do you think?
I guess it's less important what I think and paramount what I feel. I feel deep sorrow. I feel disappointment that in this moment, this is where I feel there's separation. I'm thinking particularly about the kids you're referencing in Ukraine. Gosh, they've been forced to leave their home. Just the decision to leave was such a confusion. And they're looking at survival, and yet the war continues. I commend to everyone Dr. Timothy Snyder's free online class from Yale on the making of modern Ukraine. It emphasizes the point that you make, Jim, about everyone has been oppressed or oppressor at some time. And that series of about couple dozen online classes really shows that that is true. Yeah, my breath is nearly stopped thinking about and feeling the real possibility that tactical nuclear weapons might be the only possibility for one dictator to prevail over a country in 2023 just feels otherworldly. Like, how did we get here? I'm so glad we're going to the cause, but I'm Lithuanian, and at some point, my tiny little country now was the largest country in Europe and was oppressing Russia and Ukraine. So it's the slice of time that we find ourselves in, the generation that we're attached to. But this is the moment, and this is a precarious cliff that we stand upon. That's all.
Yeah, no, again, I completely agree with your words. And it's interesting that I do a lot of this work. I've done it for a long time. I've thought about it a lot, and I still drop back into, like I just did there, asking you what you thought about it instead what you felt about it. What we feel about it is the important part. For me, one of the good positive counterpoints is when I was younger, when I spoke about those times with Dr. King and fighting the war and other things, there were not many of us. We were a small group. Now there's a lot more of us. There's a lot more of us awake, even though we have those who would make fun of that. Our numbers are increasing. So that is a positive thing. Do we have enough time? I think we have enough time if we can pull ourselves together and do it. So yeah, that's very the point of time. I think that's such an incredible point that you make, because it does shift and change. So we can shift and change it. We have the ability, we have the will, we have the people, but we need to just keep coming together. We need to unite everything. And I've said that in conferences like this before. These things are wonderful. I watch some of the things online that you do too, Kat, and I'm involved in some with you. But that won't take us where we want to be if we don't unite up all those groups. We don't all have to agree on the details. We don't all have to agree on, oh, what about these symptoms right now? We do have to agree that we need to make changes in order to move ahead in a good, positive way. That's all I'm thinking. And we have some others here, other elders in the group. Would anyone else wish to speak? Patricia, anything to put into the pot here that you would like?
Greetings, everyone. And Jim, I haven't seen you or talked to you. I know that in the beginning, about 2 years ago, you were had been on the Love Currency Embassy that I had started with Sign Network.
Yep.
So I had spent the first half hour trying to get in this event, and Becky had reminded me and invited me because of the topics. Number one, the cause of out of balance conditions, and so I was I could hear you on my phone. I got on the laptop, but it was the desk computer where I feel comfortable that I was not able to get on immediately. However, from my lens, and when I say my personal lens, it's the ceremonial language of not the conversational language of the Navajo language. I'm two different tribes, Mississippi Choctaw and quote Navajo, but these are just erroneous labels, is what I call a betrayal story, that if we betray the creator, we betray ourselves and we betray others. And the context I'm speaking in is that we're existing with creator, within creation simultaneously. And our word for that is called hojo. So there's no competing collectivities that represent competing ideologies. Therefore, polarizing people into adversary, perpetual adversary, and conflict and warfare is not in the language itself. The language does not have, it's not a context, or it doesn't have concepts. So I would just speak to the part of conquest mentality, that's to dehumanize and to devalue other people with enemy creation, and saying that justifies why someone in their own betrayal to creator, to their maker creator, is that never enough and never satisfied. So it looks like to me at this mega system level change that it's control and greed, and to bring other people in to justify slavery and bondage. And that is in colonialism, it's hierarchy, patriarchy. And in our indigenous, specifically, the Nehpazad is the ceremonial language. Specifically, there's only concept of healthy helping teamwork, even between male and female. So there's no concept of conquer meaning an empire that invades for genocide, mass murder, and also for plunder, mass theft. There's no context for it, no container for it, there's no terminology for it. And so looking at causes and gathering elders of all nations, what do you, are you looking for causes from, and like in my case, I'm describing to you from a language, from a specific ceremonial, esoteric language. So your goal in gathering elders is to bring from their tribal language and culture to look at causes and solutions, and designing what I call co-creative solutions. Is that your goal?
Yeah,
Is
fine.
goal?
I had to find my mic again, sorry. Yeah, it's we'll see what comes out of it, Patricia. It is primarily many of us, at least in this area, and others that I work in, are doing good work, but we're working on specific pieces of the puzzle. So it's coming together to look at that. Okay, what are we all working on? Now, what do we see going on around us? What is not good? What is feeding the dark wolf instead of the light wolf? And then starting to see, why is that? So stepping it up, that's the causes. What's causing that?
Mhm.
And some of it's some of the things you're just listing. Those who are greedy, those who want to control everything, are experts at pitting us against each other. And how can we overcome that? What things can we do together? Because again, the prophecies I know, and many of them I know are Lakota, or some from my own United Lenape tribe and others, talk about the fact we have to come together. Everyone has to share their bit of the puzzle, their knowledge, their wisdom. And we know some are not receptive to that. And that's okay. They don't have to be, but many of us are. And so as we share that wisdom, we see what evolves out of that. And I want to see, okay, so what can we do collectively without worrying about this one did this to me before, or that one did that, or I have to be the star or whatever. It's just coming together and seeing what comes, making the soup and seeing what kind of soup we have. No expectations. Come together to feed the light wolf and see what wisdom comes out of that pot. That's kind of what we're thinking.
Yeah, so that's that's naming what is out of balance and identifying the root cause. So using the symbol or of the wolf and which wolf to feed, that will then become the fascist wolf. When I make distinctions, because I'm not using the trade and commerce language of the context of English language, I'm simplifying and illustrating and defining from a different thinking system in that. So I use the word making, the art of making distinction in order to facilitate unifying people out of this more, better, higher, the chosen one, every justification for controlling the world, controlling and manipulating the world resources in order to benefit a few, which the terms I use are, we're talking about speaking from the heart, and the distinction I make about thinking is I never use mind and thinking in the same way. I just say that the criminal mind is using thinking for what it is not for. And in that distinction, then the sacred self intellect then is whole brain thinking and conscience and moral reasoning, and the original instructions of making decisions for the greatest good for the greatest number of people. Now listen carefully, because I'm going to speak linear, sequential, the twistedness of the cause at a mega systems level. The twistedness here is that when we agree to be a conduit and make the decisions for the greatest good for the greatest number of people, that's inclusive, that's cross-cultural, it's intergenerational. And then we're saying that we're serving justice in the world. We're serving with our own genius gift. When we do that, and we give our consensus to being that conduit for that radiant love and serving in the world, there's another group of people saying to us, when we do that, they're saying to us, but you're doing an injustice to us. I hope you're hearing the twistedness in it. That is a blasphemy. That is incongruent. That's antithetical. And I'm just going to call it sorcery. Of any group of people in any land and any language, or inverse. And our word for it is hochon, and our word for what is good, beautiful, and true for everyone, the greatest, making decisions for the greatest good for the greatest number of people is hojo. So that's a conflict of interest, but that's not dualistic. That's not like for and against. It's a conflict of interest of choosing the wolf that's hungry to feed enemy creation, hatred and violence and suffering. And yet that is the attempt right now to convert us, take away and replace, to not only convert us, but to seduce us into that thinking system that's the what I see right now as the simple yes and no values clarification. What do I value? What do I cherish? To make that decision for the next 7 generations.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing we're up against. That's the big backdrop, I believe now, Patricia. Will we have 7 generations? That's the decision we're making. That's the way my teachers taught me. And I agree with what you're saying, and I've heard you speak to some of it before, as you noted very well. I think the only place I would disagree with you a little, and maybe we're not even disagreeing, saying it differently, is that over history, once again, each people has been the oppressed and the aggressor at times, including all indigenous people. All my indigenous families, the ones I was adopted into and the ones I'm a member of, all speak to that, the ones who tell the whole story. So even those who have been oppressed have at other times not lived in the best way. And we go through that. We're humans. It is part of the picture. My own, well, I could talk about my Native American blood, but I'll stick with the Romani Gypsy. My Romani Gypsy relatives, as I was told by my grandmother and those before her, at some points they oppressed people around them. They were very warful. They were based on war and taking what you wanted. And then tables turned and they were almost destroyed. That's the sort of thinking that, to me, has to be back to the wolves again. You know, the teaching is we all carry the light wolf and the dark wolf. Which one is dominant? The one we feed. And so when I talk of the wolves, I try my best to feed the light wolf. Not always successful. And sometimes I have to sit down and say, I'm sorry, looks like I fed the dark wolf here. But if we all keep doing that, and we let our hearts and emotions and feelings shine a light, and we come together to do that, then I think we can move ahead in a better way.
Jim, I don't see a disagreement.
No, I don't either.
The reason why is when I said I'm making using the art of making distinction is that from mild to extreme in a continuum.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, that way there is no attempt to divide and gang up and the dualistic and then recruit people into that inverse, feeding the wolves that we don't want to feed, that we're not feeding. We're all agreeing that it's enough. We're not feeding that wolf. So that I heard the term original sin, and if you've studied Spanish, it really sin, seen, it just translates neutrally to being without. So that would, to me personally, that would mean without knowledge, without acknowledgement, without knowing. The original sin is we forgot who we are as a spiritual being, our identity as a spiritual being, as a humane being. And so the other thing that I said too, that this oppressed become the oppressors, the oppress the oppressors, and then the oppressed internalize that oppression. So that's internalized oppression. And then that's what you're speaking of. And of course, that then is taught to the next generations of feeding feeding the hungry wolf that is never enough and never satisfied. So in my life, when I say that the distinction here is when I'm speaking in English, my description and my making distinctions are from a thinking system that is the sacred words and language of ceremonial language. And so the word ehualism means holy thinking, and it means whole brain thinking and conscience and moral reasoning, which means do no harm. So that is congruent, what I'm speaking right there, that's congruent in English, because everything originates from intention, and there's only two intention. One is I win and you lose, and winner take all, and that's destructive and death producing decision for those outcomes that we're witnessing on a very dangerous global crisis level today. However, there's territoriality, which is not the same as conquest. And I already did describe conquest. So I'm making distinctions here in order that the word forgive is FORE-GIVE, meaning creator gave to every single soul spark of divinity with inherent sovereignty. Even us equally are inherently, so that when we acknowledge and give our consensus to that conduit of radiant love, then that means with creator who gave beforehand that inherent divinity and sovereignty, then we're not creating evil to forgive the evil. That one is spelled, to create evil to forgive evil is FORGIVE. But I'm speaking of FORE-GIVE in that oneness of Hojo and not denying. So the root cause here is denial of that oneness. And denial of that oneness is deviousness and all the lies we tell each other and tell ourselves and tell others. And someone told us. And then there's also the deception, or that's the deception is the lies. Then the deviousness is the conning and scheming to win. And then there's denial. And so right now what you're doing is deconstructing colonialism and the denial, and even the denial of what we're seeing at a world crisis level, the denial that it's going to work to perpetuate this empire of folly is going to work. It never worked. It doesn't work. Colonialism doesn't work. It became capitalism, it's imperialism, and now it is fascism. So that's what I'm thinking about when I'm listening about the mega level cause of the betrayal story. But I wanted to take us out of the dualistic, because we can't get anywhere, mostly in my travels to 10 different countries. People are wanting to know what causes invasion, genocide, and plunder. What is the cause of that? They were asking, they want to know. And so when I come back to America and I'm speaking, they don't want to know. They're in my face saying, well, you guys were already fighting when we got here. And that's perpetuating that the hungry wolf. And I don't respond accordingly to that, but to say what I have just said, in order that there is a common ground in which we can dialogue with each other in this peacemaking process, that we know that the original instruction is humaneness, to be humane. And again, I'll give an example that we're saying, the Nahukat is the holy earth surface people, who are Bela Ashtal, 5-finger people, and 5-finger people. That And even in English, it doesn't leave anybody out. It doesn't say just me, but not you. You know, it's just my tribe and not your tribe. It doesn't say that, not even in English. So I'm giving you an example in which then humane being is, and coming from the real story, is out of that forgetting our authentic spiritual identity as a humane being.
I know we have gone over, but Becky just said it's okay. There's no one behind us right yet. And this is awesome. No, this is wonderful. Thank you, Patricia. I just think maybe we should, because we have a number of people there who probably don't have their cameras on. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Patricia's brought in some beautiful thoughts here. We've talked a bit about cause before she spoke. I mean, there's a lot here, a lot on the table. Anybody want to put their hand up? Whoop, Kat's back. Oh, Kat also, before we do that, Kat also put in chat. So if you have the chat open, Kat offered the thought, if everyone wants to put in what they think the biggest issue is at the moment. I think I said that right.
Yeah, this is a conversation about cause over problem. How do we get to the root cause so that we can solve the problem? I was just curious how the 12 people in this Zoom see the root cause of the current condition of the planet, the geopolitical tension, the interpersonal conflict, the very intimate personal healing. And I want to also thank Patricia and Jim for your wisdom. Getting to the root cause seems to be a more durable way of dealing with this current moment. And we're not the first humans to feel like the end of the world may be upon us. There have been many iterations of this. I'm curious, Debbie, you have such a beautiful flower there and a bee. It shows relationship. And I'm curious if you have something you'd like to add. That's all.
I just in doing this work, you know, what was brought up earlier about the different groups experiencing oppression at different time periods, and some are closer in time and in memory. And that's a big one, right? But as Jim says, the humans need to get through this. And Patricia is introducing language here. So we're not in the dualistic us and them. And I think one of the problems in this country, Turtle Island, the United States, is many people don't know who they are and where they came from, and they feel very separated. You know, the roots have been cut a long time ago. And so in political terms, and how this English language works, right? We have these separations of color that we use to make an us and them. And then there's a separation of using the word indigenous. And now, out of respect for how the socio-political system has set that up, but then that the other side of people, the colonizers, the descendants and stuff, they're thinking that they're not of the earth anymore, which they are. And that's where their healing has to be. And that in my as I've been navigating through this world, that's where I'm at this time. We have that, Patricia will talk about our divinity. We're all precious children of the Creator and our spark of divinity, and we're all carrying that. A lot of folks just don't have it sparked up yet. And these are just things going through my mind. And then back to Kat, her question of what it comes down to, the root cause. That separation of understanding how we're related to all of life, right? And then greed. The loss of our sacred virtues. And that love, courage, wisdom, truth. Anyways, that's just all I have to say right now.
Thanks, Debbie. I'm also typing a little on the phone. I'm not being rude. We have some folks up on Pine Ridge who often tune in when I do radio shows. They don't really have a computer that works, so they listen in on my phone. And so there's 7 or 8 of them there now. And I was just relaying some of what we typed in here. Anybody else wish to have the talking stick? I didn't even realize we had 12 or 13 people until I glanced down. Okay. Becky? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jim Greywolf, for holding this space and bringing these contemplations and these questions into Grandmother Patricia and to Debbie and to Kat for your sharings. I think and feel so many people are so confused because there's so many things that are hurting and broken, and we get overwhelmed. I get overwhelmed. And if we just, for me, I look at all of the possibilities of where I can put my energy and feel overwhelmed. And yet I trust my heart when I feel curiosity and wonder around things, and how might I create beauty within a solution and do things in a different way, and try to go beyond the overwhelm and believe that what I do truly matters. I put in the chat in answer to Kat's question, what did we think that, let me pull up her question again. It's a great question. Where is it? Here we are. Where did it go, Kat? Maybe you can unmute. Oh, here we go. How do we design a culture of collaboration and collective greatest good and sufficiency? And I posted in the chat one of the root causes or root problems that I think we have is that many individuals, many of us have forgotten, or we never outright knew that what I do actually makes a difference to the whole, what I do. And people think because they are so insignificant that they can do or say or cause harm in whatever way, because it doesn't matter. And yet it really does matter. Every single being on earth matters. What we do, what we say, how we act, how we consume Mother Earth's resources, where we place our attention with intentionality, where we place our attention with unawares, all of it matters. And so I feel overwhelmed by the sadness and the suffering, and yet I just try to stoke my own joy, stoke my own curiosity, stoke my service in ways that amplify, like being part of the MLK conversions, amplify messages that I believe in of others that are in this beautiful hoop, this circle that we share. And that's a tiny piece is my tiny piece, but if we all held our tiny piece and remembered that we each matter, what we do, say, think, feel matters, how we express ourselves matters. That's a starting place from a place of despair, just having that hope and that faith, and starting where curiosity intrigues us, that can be a place to move from out of despair and into active hope, what Joanna Macy calls active hope. So thank you for inviting my voice, Jim Grey Wolf.
Your voice is always so powerful. There's a lot of powerful voices here in this group, as there are in all the groups. And that's why I know as we come together, we can coexist in harmony and start to find the solutions. A lot of it Patricia was citing as she spoke, and some I hope I did in the beginning, and Kat threw in. And I mean, right here, we're seeing it evolve. What are the causes? That's still, to me, some of what we have to really understand. You know, Patricia was talking about colonialism's not the answer. No, of course it's not. Nor is any system, in my opinion, that's on the planet today. We don't have a good, healthy operating system. We need to recreate all the systems. That means we, the people, not those that we've allowed, the trickle down thing, the few at the top to make all the decisions. That no longer works. There's 8 billion of us. Way too many. That's another separate show. But there's 8 billion people. Can't allow a few people to just skim off everything off the top and the heck with everyone else.
And there's a study.
Yeah.
I wanted to say, Jim, there's a
No.
study that shows that we can actually have much better governance with a random selection
Yeah.
of citizens than a democratic process where you are voting for representatives. So that is to say, like, what would it be like to really empower the homeless guy who's drug addicted on the street, along with a Yale graduate who has multiple postdoc studies, and they were just chosen out of the blues so that all voices were heard. Just a thought.
No, you're right. And I'm laughing because look around us. And, you know, some of what I see, it's like, boy, anybody could do better than that. And it's not about any particular group, any particular party, any particular country. It seems to be global. I mean, that is part of what past indigenous cultures brought us. Many functioned in circle. The tribe that I'm a member of, we're matriarchal. So the women actually controlled, but everyone got to speak on every subject. Not everyone made the decision. Somehow that filtered through. And again, that's another whole program. We won't go there. But yeah, you're right. I mean, we need to be able to speak, and then we need to come up with sane solutions, and solutions that come from our heart, that come for really, again, thinking about the 7 generations that Patricia mentioned. For those who don't know 7 generations, it's everything we do, everything we think. We have to think about what effect that has on 7 generations forward. And if it's too negative effect, you don't do it. I honor that every day. That sometimes I forget, but usually I don't. If I see a rock, I mean, simple things. If I see a rock out there I want to bring in and use it for a program later, I look and I make sure there's 7 more at least just like it there, and then I ask permission to take that rock. And if I get it, good, and usually when I'm done with that, I go put it back again. It's simple things. May sound ridiculous to some people, but it's not. If I'm going to buy something that's in a plastic bottle, do I really have to do that? And so I have my glass bottles here now that I use over and over and over again. Simple things make a difference. We're thinking about 7 generations forward. Okay, so it looks like Chief here is Becky and her backup, Robert. So we have to close out pretty soon because she's going to have to leave. Oh, that just ends the live stream. We can stay on a little longer if you all want. Is that right, Becky? Did I get that correct?
That's right. We can end the live stream, but the room can stay open.
Are there people who still want to stay and share more, or are we yet ready to get off? I put it to the circle.
For me, I'm curious why some of the circle joined today. If you, especially if you haven't communicated in the chat or spoken up, I really want to know what you feel is the root cause. Like Michael just said, the roots of self-protection due to fear constructs, saying I don't care or not my job. Michael, are you able to turn your camera on and say something about that? For me, I have heard not my problem so often where the
Okay.
problem seems bigger than what one person can solve. I've heard that as a response.
Yes.
All too often.
Yes, absolutely correct. These are constructs of in the workplaces. This is where you hear them. Not my job, because we're siloed into specifics and specifics of duties. But the aspect of that I don't care is a very troubling one. It is more prevalent in the younger generations as you're growing up, but as you come into the middle years and the elder years, it seems to change into the opposite. And this can be from due to different paths that are walked, but in general, it's because of our fear of death. So as we get closer to that number that we're all told that we live till, average being 70 years and so forth, it is that fear of the death that sits in the back that then turns our minds around to saying, well, I don't have enough time for this I don't care crap anymore, because I want to feel as much as I can before I leave. And so these the movement of coming into the world and going through your first 7 years, then your next 7 years, and then your next 7 years to be conditioned into your early adulthood is controlled by, again, that fear system. And so a lot of times, most of the time, I should say, by the time that young mind becomes of an adult age, and there's really no really specific age, someone could be adult at 15, where 45 would not be an adult, but that's for another subject. This, by the time you reach into your 30, the system that we are constructed in, that were handed down from the previous generations, that is out of control, that nobody controls, because each board member is changed and the company still goes on, but the person who at the realm has either died or been fired or replaced or whatever, but the construct still keeps on going. And if anybody tries to change it, then they're removed. So it is at that level of that corporation, our ability to function together without a corporation structure is one that needs to be looked at into the future. And I know Kat has referenced in that aspect, we could have a lot more synergy by just pulling a name from the hat to put on that board and so forth. But again, by the time a person reaches that young adulthood, that sense of why bother? The giving up of that willingness to do something sets in at those ages. And so by the time someone is sitting, got the mortgage, got the house and everything, then the chasing is not to what you want to do, but the chasing then becomes, how do I maintain what I have already without losing it all, i.e. becoming homeless. People look at people and being homeless or without a place to rest their head in a very bad way. So these things we need to change when we take care of our brother and our sister, that specific mentality. So I hope I've brought in a little bit of roundedness to this conversation. But the total aspect of that fear, and it's not my job, or I don't care, the lack of response with the abilities, because everybody has an ability to respond to someone else's need in some way, whether a kind word or a helping hand or financial or a place to rest. But the constructs of our system require you to fork out money in order to help. And that definitely has to change, in that aspect. Nobody wants to do anything unless they get paid for it. Again, that's the construct that our system has put us all in. And those are what we need to get away from, in my opinion, on that side. Thank you very much for your
as explorers around the planet, you can't really get to where you're headed unless you know where you're starting. And Jim, I just really want to thank you for hosting this conversation about root cause, because if we don't know where we're starting from, we could end up anywhere.
Yes.
And an even darker place than where we are right now.
Mhm.
So I just really want to thank you for
that's an age-old question too, Kat. Where do we come from? I mean, that's a why am I here? Those are age questions that will never be answered. So focusing on where we come from rather than what we can do.
I think that's a different question, Michael.
Yeah. Yes, no, I understand.
Right.
That.
I think what Kat's saying, correct me if I'm wrong, both of you, we need to know where we start from now as causes of the destruction we see all around us, not where did we come from in the beginning of time. That's
the root on that is going back to the aspect of our corporations. We humans have given up our responsibility unto a non-being person that is in control of a real being person. If you, there is no other root other than that root.
Well, there
in our society, in the construct of this world,
Michael,
that is the root of the root. Thank you,
Michael. In this moment, that might feel correct, but then if you're a government employee, you might have a different perspective.
But a government employee is a corporation. Well, the government is a corporation. Can we not come together in a way that is not corporatized?
No. Okay.
To function. Like that's what I'm saying in that aspect. We only
Yeah.
do things unless it's registered. If you try to make money, you have to incorporatize to be accountable to that Babylon system. Why?
So this we're heading off track a bit.
Yeah, I know.
This is another whole show. We could
Yes,
do a
I
lot.
know, I know, Jim. But
And
we're
it-
talking about the roots, right? The roots of our.
And I would say,
we're doing.
Michael, just to end this piece, that is one
Thank you.
symptom
Yes, yes.
of the cause. What is the cause? What has caused us to do that? What has caused us to allow that as humans? That's the cause we need to dig out, I think. But you're right as far as what you're saying. Anyway.
Thank you very much for your
Yes,
time.
thank you. Thank everybody. This has been an
Yes.
incredible discussion. It just,
Well, it gets down to that,
there we go.
you got to know where you came from to know how you got to where you're at,
Yep.
know how to proceed, what the
Yes.
elders have been telling us.
Yeah. Yeah, it goes back to that. I guess I'm paraphrasing. You're right, Debbie. If we don't make changes, then we're doomed to repeat the same thing over and over again. And that's what we've seen. That's definitely what we've seen. So it's time for major changes. And I think it was Michael was saying, and you're right, there's so many people who don't want to make changes. I'm running into tons of people now saying, well, we're going to hell in a handbasket, so I'm just going to have fun now with the time that's left. We don't want to be there. So I'm focusing, or trying to, and so are a lot of people, on positive things. Even with all the darkness around us, there are great beams of light. Some of you are sitting in chairs in front of me today. Thank you. There are a lot of positive aspects. That's where we need to focus, and especially also correct the young people. The young people are really being affected, some of them, by this. I've seen some incredible young people drop out of the discussion because they just had enough. And that's not something we want to see happen. So we keep talking. Yeah, Debbie, I'm sorry.
Many young people that I work with, they already know this stuff that the older people are having to deal with right now. They've already gone through that. And so when the older people are kind of bumbling around a little bit with identity and hurt, there's a lot of young folks that are just like, we're ready to start getting some work done, or they're going off in despair. I was going to say one more thing, but I can't remember now. Sorry.
All right. I do that a lot.
When you say they're going off into spirit, do you mean committing suicide?
Yeah. Or depression, or drug use that ends up leading to that. I've known a lot of young people to pass in recent times.
I can report that over the last, dozen years or so that I've worked with young people here in Eagle County and Vail Valley, a place of great economic disparity. Almost every year there have been young people wanting to speak about suicide. So I can offer you that evidence that, in fact, even in the places that seem to be some of the happiest on the planet, are also places of great desperation for those who are not included, are not heard, are not given sufficient resources to have a full whole life.
Yeah, you're hit the nail right there, but with that, Kat. I'll, if you don't mind, I could share a personal story about a friend of mine who, growing up, he was so disillusioned. He was very outgoing with his spirit, giving all, with music, with everything that he had inside. And so the disillusionment talk about, he came to a point where he said, you know, if by the time I'm 30 years old, things haven't changed around, I'm checking out of here. And having people keep true to their word is one thing in this world, but he kept true to his word on that. And the next friend of mine, someone who came across him, which affected him, you know, greatly. Well, all of us, but him finding our friend. So it is that definite, that definality. I don't even know if that's a word, but that, you know, that setting that goal as a young teenager, young adult. And he was like 20, 21, 22 at the time when he had said this. And not just to himself, expressed it to us. And, you know, when people say things like that, you know, you go, okay, well, you know, but after hearing it a few times from him, you know, it wasn't. So it was just after his 30th birthday that he said, you know, okay, well, that's it. I'm done. I'm out of here. You guys go and deal with what you got to deal with. So that's a whole level of different loss of hopefulness. You know, his caring for humanity was off the chart as far as I'm concerned. He would help anybody, just stop anything, you know, so giving. And it was a great loss because, you know, he had come to a fruition of being able to get past that definition of where, you know, that he set out for himself. He could have changed and helped so many other people have some light in their dark places. And that was the greatest loss, was losing his light. Thank you.
I remembered what I was going to say. And
You're right.
Thank you.
So one of the blocks that I've been running into recently is when, you know, when the people put up the walls, they don't want to talk about it. Everything you talk about is how awful everything. I'm like, usually I don't think I'm bringing it awful, but lately it's been, stop talking about the colonizers and decolonizing. I can't take it anymore. There were some good things that came out of it. And it will come from mouths of people that really surprise me. So I've been trying to come up with another way back to language. And it gets back to that us and them, right? When I'm speaking, all of a sudden I'm creating this us and them barrier. So, but at the same time, walking with respect for those who have been really hurt, right? That are carrying, finding other ways without making everything invisible, right? The best way to speak so it's inclusive on, hey, we need to, this isn't working. And somebody was saying in a workshop yesterday, I only caught part of it, but they were saying how their anger, even though they try to walk through life in a good way, but their anger and unhappiness with how things are going is preventing them from doing the good that they have the potential of doing.
Yes, that's powerful. You know, I'm going to let me segue for 1 minute, if I may, and let's get back to that point, Debbie. Becky needs to come on because she needs to leave. Becky, floor is yours.
Thank you so much. This has been such an extraordinary conversation to listen to experience, to feel, and to be part of. And I know there are many people watching our live streams on multiple Facebook pages, thanks to Sign Network. cross-posting on different pages, and to each of you for sharing the live stream as well. And this program from Jim Greywolf has been part of the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Convergence, the Being Beloved Community Convergence that is going on through tomorrow. And we want to make sure if you're finding this live stream that you have a way to learn about other programs that are coming forth. You can watch them on the Facebook page for Compassion Games. It's facebook.com/Compassion Games. And you can also go to compassiongames.org/all-events, ALL-events, and see our emerging schedule. It goes in chronological order, and you can see different events that are coming. We have a Dr. King birthday celebration this evening, and we have more events throughout today and tomorrow. So we want to make sure that you find a way there. You can register on compassiongames.org to get some email information about this convergence and other convergences that we offer here. And so thank you so much to everybody for contributing your voice in the Zoom room and your comments in the chat as well. I'm going to end the live stream now, but please visit compassiongames.org. And thank you again, Jim Greywolf, for offering this beautiful and heart-stirring, thought-provoking, but heart. I want to keep going back into the heart today. I'm so grateful.
Thank you, Becky. Whoop, I see our friend Christopher's just jumping in from New Zealand. Thanks, Becky. It's, this has been, so it'll continue to record, guys. And I'm assuming when we leave, it'll all go to Becky, I hope. Don't stop tomorrow. If things still are moving you, I was asked to come and do a similar talk physically on Wednesday, so I'm going to do it here locally. So keep it up. I mean, let's keep that light shining as long as it needs to. Anyway, thank you, Becky. Love you. And thank you, Robert. I know you're back there somewhere. We have our nonprofit that's been around for a while, and we're rebirthing it now because the time is right, and it's around a lot of the issues we're talking today. I'm only saying that because suddenly we have 1, 2, 3, 4 of us on the board who are here today. So that's 5. Whoop, I see Eve's there too. So it's kind of interesting. That wasn't intentional. 6, Louise is there. So people of like mind and like heart are coming together, are connecting. Anybody who hasn't, Christopher, you haven't been here, but you have a great and huge heart. We're talking about tapping into our heart to dig into what are the causes of the things we see going on around us. Anything you'd wish to share?
The big part for me, I've broken it down to the simplicity of separation. We're so used to coming from our logical mind, which perceives itself as separate. We're not used to using the other aspects of consciousness, the first one of those being awareness. And when we come from awareness, awareness doesn't judge, it doesn't separate, it doesn't have hierarchy, and it doesn't perceive separation. Once we're in awareness, we can get into the deeper, more connected aspects of consciousness. And the first way of awareness, as I say for most people, is perceiving, that we're thinking. And if we notice, we're aware that we're thinking. If we drop the thought out, we're left with the awareness. And it's just used to getting used to coming from that awareness rather than coming from the thinking mind. That's the simplicity of it. We've got so used to separation, we've forgot we've got a connected aspect of consciousness readily available. And the simple techniques I teach people for transitioning from those simple breathing techniques, simple, tuning into our hearts, from the breath to the heart to the spine, which is our lifeline, and then grounding from there. It sounds so simple, but that's all it is. We make it complicated and it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother. That's a good flag for this whole discussion. We humans tend to make things so difficult. And I was thinking of that as I listened to Patricia earlier. Some of what she shares is like, well, heck, we should know that. but we don't because we've forgotten. And a lot of it's not difficult. I know a lot of what I talk about. It's not difficult. We simply have let it leave our awareness. So, Christopher, thanks for bringing that forward. So here's a request, if you're willing, Patricia. I guess this is Michael. Would you speak about the story you referred to?
Well, thank you. I was just going to answer him and say that Jim had already said that it was another whole new and different conversation dialogue.
Yeah.
Because the topic is so huge, but I just let him know that in the betrayal story, there are many mega level causes, and metaphysical teaches about certain types of energy spirits that entered humans at a certain time in history. We don't know the reason for this insane thought that created evil. And in the Deneh language, the ceremonial language, there's no word for evil. We have no word for evil at all, because humans created the idea and they created the symptoms. So the symptoms reinforce the belief, and the belief reinforce the symptoms. So that's really deep and profound, that there's a reason why we don't have a word for evil. And I know there was mention of Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist, about the shadow. Also in our ceremonial language is the shadow is a reflection of the sacred self, which is holy, precious, sacred child of creator within creation simultaneously. So that shadow is not the evil or the shadow side or the dark side or the any other word that conveys that our words only say that we're the precious child of creator within creation. And then what Michael was referring to is a root cause metaphysically, that they're saying that all the politicians, in fact, I put my email there. If you want to, I can send you the email. I just finally found the definition of the word archons. I've been hearing it for many, many years, and I got an exact definition, but that is the explanation metaphysically for all the corrupt, guess what? The corrupt politicians and the leaders of the world today, that's the root cause. I'll just stop there unless there are any more clarifications for that.
No, that's great. Thank you. And then Patricia's contact info is also on chat. So anybody who wants more, actually from any of us, feel free. I put my website, I realized I should put my email as well. Anyone else who wants to share their information, do so. This was a teaching that I really, Becky and I talked about a little while ago, but I really wasn't thinking of bringing it here. And then she and I connected just yesterday, I guess. And it felt like, okay, it's time. So it just evolved. So any of you here right now, thank you, blessings to you. There's no coincidences. We're meant to be here. When I saw Kat was here, I saw Patricia was here, I thought, oh, this is going to be powerful. And it has been. And all of you, whether you've spoken or not. Debbie, great thoughts. Thank you all. Michael, likewise. We're holding a great energy here. And at the moment, there's 11 of us, which is my sacred number, because I was born on 11/11. So, yeah. What else? Anything else that wants to come into this circle? Christopher?
One of the things I find that is easy for us to do, I find when I take people into nature, one of the things they do, being caught up in the head, they're experiencing what I call they're walking through nature, they're not walking in nature. And this is something that's important that we do. We learn to experience our sensory experience of nature and of life itself, of relationship, of activity, rather than waiting till the sensory thought or sensory experience goes to the brain, and the brain then analyzes it, adds story, which creates separation. If we stay in the senses before thought occurs, we stay in our connected experience of both nature, of life, of relationship, of work, activity, even washing the dishes. Just be with washing the dishes. Feel the dish in your hand. Feel the water over your hands. It's this connection that gives us a powerful place to come from, because everything becomes a living experience then. And we start experiencing that sense of life in every experience. And it's this connection we need to get back in touch with, to feel the earth, to feel the air we breathe, to feel the water we drink, and be a part of that experience as we're doing it. The other thing I look at and often use as an indication for people, when we talk about the word evil, I get them to write it down. Then I get them to write it in reverse and realize it's the same life energy and the same life path. We're just heading in the opposite direction. And it's saying evil is activity that takes us away from our connection and away from life rather than towards it. Look at the activity, turn our behavior and motivation around 180 degrees, and then we're heading in the opposite direction, which is life, which is evil spelt backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Simple indications, but to me, good clarifications. Thank you.
I forgot that one. Thanks, Christopher. I haven't thought about that one in years. Yeah, we're going back and forth about the number 11 on there. Yeah, it is. I didn't even know what that meant, Patricia, until I was in my late 30s, because I was a late bloomer. But understanding that 11 in our birth signs or our family signs is a critical message.
Yeah, what Christopher's referring to is what I call in English, our word for it is hochuan. Hochuan, everything no good and doesn't work.
Yeah.
That we're valuing and cherishing and perpetuating. So in English, I use the word inverse. Actually, Eurocentric dualistic inverse is the whole phrase I use to describe this twistedness of blasphemy, antithetical, incongruent, and sorcery that reverses into what is destructive and death producing.
Yeah.
I feel similar with that, is noticing that which takes us away from life, and as you say, death producing. The further you go towards it, the more death and more separation there is.
Well, you went right, you focused right on exactly where the origins of it is, not being nature, but the abstract of being in nature. And when in fact, at the fundamental basis of equality, we're all earth, water, fire, air, and we're in the earth, water, fire, air simultaneously, with creator within creation simultaneously. That's what we call hojo. And so we have a word for, and nobody can be outside of hojo. It's all inclusive. It's a holiness with H and wholeness with W, where there's no competing collectivities or competing ideologies. We're all eternally existing within it, and that's what people are denying of that oneness that I described earlier. So you said it exactly. And all of you, English is my first language. However, you all still have your own gift, and a genius gift of the command of English language. And the way I hear Jim and Kat and Christopher is using that command to describe and identify these root causes in a way that for the general public to get to convey that authentically, so that it takes them out of abstract English of being with nature and brings people into, what does it mean to be in nature? Means within and around.
If I could jump in here, one of the things that intrigues me, and I love with your words, Patricia, is recently I've had an experience where I go down to a beach. I can feel the native forest behind me. I can feel its breath. I can feel the breath of the water of the shore lapping. I could feel the breath of the land. But what it's showing me is it's actually not three separate breaths. It's taken me into an experience where it's all one breath. And it's like I just go out and I can feel everything breathing, including the air itself, in the same time space. My brain has not wrapped itself around this, but I know the experience when I'm there. Like I literally feel everything in the same time space.
So that's the elegant solution. That is the inclusive, elegant solution is to reframe and for people to remember and to awaken to exactly what you said. Then we will feel, then we will act and put this radiant love into action by our humaneness and making those choices accordingly. And Kat is asking for some distinction between synergistic and synchronistic. I'm going to say to you how I always have been telling people that synchronistic, Jung's term of synchronistic is, I'm saying that he's in the Western scientific world, he's just saying it's a front word for love. And that just means everything is in harmony and balance. Everything is already in harmony and balance. We're the ones denying. So synchronicity is that principle of balance and harmony and within the oneness. And the synergy is each one of us doing our part. Then we are more than just our part. Then we have a greater amount of energy that is exponential, because right now this is a healing ceremony. It's pure education. It is exponential. It went out on the live stream. It's going out into the etheric network. It's going into the web of life. It's going into the vibration of the whole environment that we're in. And so that's synergy is the sum is more than each part. Did I clarify that for you? So that
Yes.
I'm saying that synchronicity is a front word for love, and synergy is excuse me. Synchronicity is a front word for spirituality, and synergy is a front word for love. Okay, now I got it. Because the scientific world cannot just talk about spirituality and love. So he had to make these abstract words, synchronicity, which is spirituality, and then synergy is love. There, I got it straightforward.
Well, I like to just say that synchronicity of the love that Christopher brings in his presentness of place that he shares comes through to me in a very powerful ways. And we've synchronized in some way that when he brings forth that moment, it speaks so many volumes to me that words just come through on the fly. And as he well knows, it's I want to thank you very much for doing that and allowing me to express that which is within me that you bring out from those moments of being in that place. It is a very powerful, powerful place of Mother Earth calling out through you. I just want to recognize you for that and for being there for Mother Earth to bring that to the world. Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you very much for that. It's much appreciated. And for me, that's one of the keys of what I share with people is feeling that connection. And it's not something that you can think. You cannot bring the logical mind to this. One of the ways I explain it to people is often like if I touch my finger, I have a sense and it sends a signal down here. By the time it gets to here, it's already in the past. So the brain only works in the past. Whereas when we step into awareness and presence with everything, we're operating in the moment. When we experience in the moment, we experience our heart content. Because one thing I find, if we want to get in touch with love, love is an in the moment experience. You're present when you feel love. You feel in the experience. You cannot think it afterwards. The ego or the thinking brain has no capacity to experience love at all. So learning to be in the moment is essentially key. Now, one of the things I was going to add, you mentioned earlier, Jim, that you don't subscribe to good or evil, and I don't tend to either. I convert it like you do to light and dark. And the difference between the light and dark, to me, the dark is just the dark of the unconscious mind. The light is the light of the conscious mind, which is where enlightenment is essentially about becoming conscious. And the first thing we become conscious of is ourselves and our personal experience. We then extend that to worldly experience and then to universal experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Well said. Yeah, there's all kinds of things going up in the chat. Thanks, everybody. I put some notes up from the folks in Pine Ridge. First, there was a thank you to Patricia from some of the grandmothers up there. And then to Christopher, because I guess some of them felt that you really understand nature, you're connected, and you do. For those who are on Facebook, Christopher not only has nice words, powerful words, but some incredible photography. It's how I first realized how connected he was to the natural world. I would look him up and just follow. One of my first things every morning is to see what pictures he put up. They're just very life affirming, they're very in the light, and they are very connected. So just a thought. Likewise with Patricia, make sure you look her up, and she has some amazing stuff going on always. I was part of an early group that she had put together and then had a shift as I was moving around. But there's tons of things out there. There's tons of ways we can connect.
Also, I wrote, excuse my pronunciation, but Ante
Wasti.
Wopila to the grandmothers in Pine Ridge.
I'll pass it along.
Hmm.
So it looks like it's a grandmother.
Could I just share one more thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Could I share one more thing?
Yes, brother.
Sort of getting used to the audience here now. One of the things that I've had shared with me recently when I was talking, you'll get to know what I do, when I was talking to the earth and she was showing me what we need to do. She was very clear that it's not a time for working in separation anymore. And she showed me that we need to work in community and connection. And it's a time of working with her, listening to her and her direction. The time for the separation is over. The whole corporate, money-based greed separation model, it's over. And she wanted us to work as a beneficial organism in her environment, because we're in her air, we're in her water, and her water is in us. We're part of a living nature. And she showed me this by how all the plants, the small to the big, work together in the forest. And she says, we need to be part of this. Because once again, becoming that beneficial organism rather than an out of harmony, separated organism, which is creating a dis-ease or a not at ease in her biome, her living nature and environment. And yeah, this is what we've got to come back to.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I'm part of this, and I'm giving gratitude as we sit here speaking, because this has been an incredible discussion. I'm so glad we have it on tape. but I'm just paying attention to the different roles we're playing. It's amazing. And one person I haven't really highlighted yet is my good sister Kat up there in the corner. Kat is an incredible connector of people and things and ideas. You see it as she shares online. One of the people I'm most connected to on the planet, always there to connect people, to connect thoughts, and not in an angry way. And she and I have done a lot of things together, virtually and physically. And there's always an element of fun as well. And I just want to put that in for a moment. It is really critical as we do this. F-U-N. Put it in everything we do, folks. We really, really have to. That's one thing that keeps everyone moving, especially the young people, but especially some of us gray hairs too. There's no reason you can't have fun as you do this. I've had people say, well, that lessens the work, or you're not paying, you're not serious. No, I'm sorry. As I was taught, it's just the opposite, and I'm sure for some of you too. It's more like it's a critical ingredient of that soup that I mentioned, Patricia. It has to go into that soup if we're going to end up with a good soup.
Yeah, I just want to say this. It's been my experience that comedians are masterful communicators. They understand the total irony of a moment, and they're able to deliver the universal medicine in a way that is sweeter. So we don't even realize that we're drinking it down. So yeah, I agree with you, Jim, wholeheartedly.
True.
Yeah, I've got my hummingbird out for us right now.
Yeah. Woo. Anyone else? I'm almost afraid to ask. Talking Stick is still here.
I'd just like to share. I put a link in the chat.
Is that? Oh, Michael. Yeah. Okay.
To one of the powerful pictures that I had written some words to.
Excuse me.
And I just wanted to bring this by voice. As I bend my shores to meet your horizon, our reflection calms the waters within to reveal a stillness between us. Soon our relatives will join us to bring the fullness needed to see the vision of oneness we can make together. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Good. Yeah, good timing. Here's a piece from, it was just suggested by another Michael who's up on Pine Ridge. Jim, please bring in Black Elk and remember some of his final teachings. So Black Elk has been one of my spirit guides, my primary one, since I stepped up on the spiritual road. He actually left the physical plane exactly 30 days after I entered it. But he was a powerful seer. Black Elk Speaks is one of the books written with him that you might want to read. But the thing that they're talking about is at the end of his life, he had had these amazing visions, and some of it had really come true. But a lot of them had not, and he considered himself a failure because his visions had not completely materialized by the time he left. Well, a lot of them have materialized since. So we got to remember everything we do is, once again, that time thing. It's happening now. It doesn't mean it didn't have an effect because we don't see the end of our trail by the time we leave. And for some of us getting older, that becomes something to really remember. So I do that to honor our friends also in Pine Ridge and thank them for that suggestion. Also, Patricia, the grandmothers are getting together for some prayer circle afterwards. They would ask your permission and Kat's permission to bring your energy into that prayer center.
Totally, absolutely. And also I have a double cousin. She's also Choctaw Navajo.
Oh,
She's married up there, but she's in Rosebud, in Mission Rosebud.
okay.
She's married to she's Billie Jean Artichoke, and so she's married to Bitch Artichoke. So she's close by. She's close by in Mission in Rosebud.
Cool. Excellent.
But totally, yes. That this is the love energy of caring, yes. Because we can see the beauty and then we can love, and it all originates from our caring and caring for earth, water, fire, air. We care for ourselves. We're stewarding. We've been the stewards for generations, and then we're caring for ourselves and all humanity.
Okay. So in about 3 hours time, they'll be having that going on. So you and Kat will both be energetically part of that prayer circle.
My family is the Red Bear family in Pine Ridge.
Ah,
Married into that family. My daughter's a member of Pine Ridge.
so we got, okay, Pine Ridge friends. We've got a lot of connections to you today. They're usually the only ones on when they do, whoops. I just lost their signal. That's interesting. They'll be back. Yeah, so that's interesting.
I was going to offer, if anybody's interested, I could offer a short breathing exercise. If anybody's interested.
Sounds good to me. Might be a good way to start to close this down. Show of hands. There's one.
This breathing exercise.
Okay, you got it, brother.
Okay. This breathing exercise is about just learning to listen to breath. So what I suggest is we just feel our breath. We can feel it through the nose, nostrils, throat, lungs, chest. Just feel the body breathing and feel the natural rhythm of the breath. And we're just breathing in time with that breath. We notice the rhythm of the breath, the pace of the breath. Notice how we experience our mind or brain from this place. Notice how we experience the energy of the body from this place, from this natural rhythm. Breathing in time with it. What does it feel like to breathe in time with the natural rhythm of the breath? And now I invite you to feel below that rhythm, to feel if there's a deeper rhythm the body is drawn and wishes to breathe at. And we drop into that deeper rhythm of the breath. Dropping through the surface rhythm into this deeper rhythm of the breath. Breathing in time with it, feeling it. Feeling ourselves in its presence. Feeling where it draws us, invites us to be. Feeling its expanse. Now breathing through this to an even deeper rhythm of the breath, the third rhythm of the breath. Dropping right through into it. And breathing in time with her rhythm. Feel how we experience our sense of being in this place. A sense of expanse, presence, vastness, and the third, deeper rhythm of the breath. Being in the natural flow, consciousness of this breath. Notice how we experience and perceive in this place. What senses are enlightened or enlivened. Experiencing these senses. Breathing in rhythm with this third rhythm of the breath and its presence. Coming back to the breath now. come back up to the second rhythm. Back up to the third rhythm. I should say the first one. Just quietly and gently, becoming aware of where we are, what we're doing, who we're with, coming back to the here and now, being aware of where you are, who you're with, and what you're doing. Quietly and gently opening your eyes again. And back here with the here and now. Thank you. Very short offering.
No, it was perfect. And there was only a few of us here when we first came on. So we opened this with a short drumming the heartbeat with the Earth Mother. So it's perfect to come around to Christopher doing a centering thing at the end. Are we ready to begin to head off now? I had no idea we were going to be here for half a day, but this is a beautiful thing. Anybody disagree? Anyone still need the talking stick? I know that's dangerous. This is like, yeah.
I would just like to say thank you to everybody here, and for our native brothers and sisters. Energetically, I would like to offer tobacco and thanks and much respect for your offerings. I've gained much from this short time I've been here. Thank you very much.
Yes, Christopher, where are you at? You're where?
I'm in New Zealand.
I've been to the Maori ceremonies there.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm not of the people, the indigenous people of our land, but my connection with nature, but through that I feel a connection through many beings is the only way I can describe it.
Yeah.
And I feel gratitude for, the only way I can describe it, when I'm in nature, I feel gratitude for all beings everywhere. It's just a state of presence. It's a consciousness. And I'd like to say thanks to everybody here. I've really appreciated the presence.
Yeah, we had a good sampling of people just in our group here from our nonprofit. Christopher's in New Zealand. Louisa was here for the first half. She's in England. Kat's in Colorado. We had people in East Coast. Had a couple of us here in Sedona. So this was a very global gathering, which is exactly what I like to see right now. It's one reason I like using the internet. I was trained by sitting at the fires, much like Patricia, going around the planet and sitting with the elders. But now we can connect with everybody in a moment, and that also has value. But we have to do both. I was going to close this out with a little prayer, but I'm wondering if, Patricia, you might like to do a final prayer.
I would call this an affirmation of everything that is good, beautiful, and true. And I will shorten to a few phrases and describe in English their standard. Every single ceremony begins with in the sequencing here. Kodo hojo dole, in our eternal self, in the eternal now. Nahasan hima, our sacred Mother Earth. Jonah E, which is Father Sky, and the Yadilchith, everything that's good, beautiful, and true in the universe for us. Nahokos, from the sunrise to midday to evening to midnight. In the Ashabikeho, sunwise, as we travel on our spiritual life journey. Hojo na sha dole. And on the 4 corn pollen footsteps. Sa nagayibig e hojon, Haradin ik eschin, Haradin atin, Haradin naantien, Haradin sad. This is the pathway, the teaching, and the sacred words of a prayerful way of life. Hojo nahaskli, Hojo nahaskli, Hojo nahaskli, Hojo nahaskli. And that is a phrase of there is goodness and beauty and peace and love and joy and good health and abundance and a plenitude within me and around me, and all is complete accordingly. Thank you to my and also each and every one of you, my spiritual family and Zoom relatives.
Thank you, Patricia. Perfect. Thank Creator, we thank the ancestors, and I thank you, my family here today as well. Wonderful sharing. Becky sent me a message. She really wants to make sure we get this up. So she'll also give it to me, and I'll also have it up on YouTube whenever they get around to it. And let's share it around, because I think between us, we created a beautiful energy today. So thank you all. Oh, Mastelo. Beautiful.